All right. This is going to be fun, guys. So, welcome back. Happy New Year to everybody. 2026. I can't believe it. As the years fly by fast. So, I'm looking forward to have this guest introduce himself a little bit. He's going to do a whole lot better job than me. But before I get there, I want to let Aaron know as well that, dude, you're the first podcast of 2026 for us. So, I'm excited about this for you, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot and asking a lot of questions and keeping it real with each other. So, like, if you don't mind, can you give us and before I even get there, let me take a step back as well, because I always kind of mention this is for next in line. The reason why we even do this, our mission stays the same. It's all about paying it forward, right? That's number one. That's the North Star. So what we have is we cater to the workforce community. So what's came into practice for us is all about interview tips, or not just that, but let's say lessons learned, like having the real thing, like how'd you get to where you're at today? Or what were the either lessons learned, or, what would you tell well, in my case, what would I tell my 25-year-old self? Right. So what would I tell Steve, that young kid at 25? Everything that I know now. So, those type of scenarios we like to review. So, if you're comfortable with that, feel free. This is, how we are. We already talked a little bit about it. So feel free to introduce yourself and who you are and how do you get with Alex AI.
Incredible. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Cesar. This is our first podcast of 2026 as well. So this will be a lot of fun. We'll see about the advice. I think I first have to make it to 25. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alex AI. Alex is an AI recruiter for staffing firms and direct employers. We work with some of the largest employers and staffing firms in the world to automate over 80% of the recruiting process today. So Alex conducts, resume screens, phone screens, video interviews, scheduling with candidates, sourcing, matching within your applicant tracking system. And ultimately, our goal is to say, hey, look, 200 people applied for this posting. Here, Alex is going to do all the busy work and ultimately tell your recruiters, hey, I interviewed 200 people today. Here are the top, 2 or 3 candidates that are actually worth your time, and you should submit to your clients, right? So excited to chat today, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. Well, obviously I'm in the staffing business, so I'm really interested in going deep on this one. So, you're solving everything you mentioned there. You're solving a lot of problems. And I think also not just making, staffing companies efficient, but I also think raising the care for the workers, right? The candidates, right? Because I think there's still this thing going on with a tremendous amount of ghosting. It doesn't go away. I think this got to help with it, right? It's going to help with people just want to be, contacted and kind of know what's going on and see if there's an opportunity versus submitting resumes and never hearing back. I call it like the black hole abyss, or they never hear anything. So, I think that's another nice little bullet that you guys have that I don't know if that was the focus, but I could tell you, the reputation and, saying that a company can follow back up with you, I think separates you in this game today.
It's, I'll tell you, Cesar, I've been a job seeker much longer than I've been an employer. And so, ultimately we want, candidates to have a voice. It turns out that, the best people for the job, they didn't all go to Harvard and get a 4.0, right? I certainly didn't. And certainly our best employees were not that or are not that. And it's about going and finding those diamonds in the rough, right? And they have the skills to do the job, and they can actually perform in their job. That's what matters at the end of the day. And that's why we started 20 months ago. And since then we've done a lot of great work and onboarded a lot of great customers. We've raised over $20 million from some of the best investors in Silicon Valley. And it's a very exciting time. And I think staffing firms and employers and candidates alike will all benefit from better hiring experience.
So I heard you didn't get a 4.0, but I heard you got more like a 4.5, but I'm not keeping score, but that's what I heard. But anyway, so congrats, man. I mean, I don't know if you mind sharing, you feel free, whatever you feel comfortable with, but like, that's pretty impressive. Everything you just mentioned. I mean, you're like in the heart of like the technology sector where all the money's being raised and a lot of fun, a lot of action going on, right? Who are some of your, blue chip investors that you guys do work with that's backing you guys?
Yeah, so we raised our Series A few months ago, announced by TechCrunch, led by folks in the round. You might know Peak 15, which was a branch of Sequoia, Y Combinator, a few other great folks as well. Uncorrelated Ventures came in, um, a lot of industry leaders as well. So you might be familiar with Tim Sackett or Chad and Cheese, Joel Cheeseman.
Oh yeah,
So a lot of great names from the space, and as well as some of the leaders from folks like OpenAI. We have a very close partnership with those folks, and allows us to get some of the best technology in the world to our customers.
that sounds
So
exciting.
yeah.
Is this the first time, your first time having a company with raising money like that?
Um, my co-founder and I have built companies together before. This is the first, I would say, in certainly in this space, um,
Okay.
at this scale, which is interesting because if you actually look at the largest companies today by market cap, they're actually all started by folks that tend to be younger, and it's really their first time. If you look at
Sure.
Microsoft with Bill, Meta with Zuck, Google with Sergey and Brandon, Larry Page, they were still students at Stanford. Jensen, was a dishwasher at Denny's famously, right? And hadn't
Love
started
it.
a company before starting Nvidia. I could go on and on. It's it's an interesting data point.
I have a feeling I'm going to be reading about you about that. Like, so what was your first real job? Like, what, were you, did you have tell me a little bit how you came up. You got to college, but were you, your background, your upbringing, like, were you somebody, I could tell you, share mine. Mine's really simple. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Didn't grow up with the silver spoon, right? Didn't even go to college. Went to the military and things like that. But I just feel like we all have different roads to get where we at, right? I think it comes down to like, what keeps score is like, can you score points? Can you deliver? Right? How committed? Committed, it goes a long way, man.
It does. At the end of the day, the score takes care of itself. I was raised by two immigrant parents. They came from China. They were actually both doctors in China originally,
Okay.
and I gave it all up to come to America. And my mother went from being a doctor to being a waitress at a Chinese restaurant here in San Francisco overnight.
Wow.
And at the time, the certifications didn't translate across
Mm.
borders. So my dad, he went to the best medical school in China, Beijing University's medical school,
Wow.
but didn't transfer over. So he had to spend, several years redoing all of this stuff while my mom was, waiting tables. And so
She held it down.
it was, yeah. And so my earliest memories were, running around. My dad would often study at like the MIT library or other public libraries, and I grew up in Boston, and so I'd always remember like running around the Charles River, running around the libraries, and it was, yeah. I think watching my parents work really, really hard and rubbed off a lot on me. I'm the oldest of three, and um, their ability to take a risk, their tolerance and appetite for risk, I think also rubbed off on me. And they gave up so much to move to America, and so um,
Mm.
most things aren't as risky as they seem.
100%. I think fear gets in a lot of our ways, right? I'm with you on that. Man, shout out to your parents, man. Your mom, that was my rock too. So like, wow, that's I love hearing stuff like that. So and I bet you that's something I haven't really got to know you that well yet, but I can already tell, brother, like you got a fire behind you because of that. That's unbreakable, right? You ain't gonna let nobody down. You're gonna make this thing work. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys will be able to do at Alex AI. It's good to have playbooks and strategies, but that right there, I think is really what people believe in. And I think people invest in that kind of heart. You know what I'm saying? So, and then, so you were that little guy running around MIT library, driving your pops crazy while your mom's busting her ass, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we couldn't afford a daycare or anything, of
Sure.
course, and we yeah, it was quite a formative time for me. I took up math at a really early age.
Tell me.
I love reading and computer science, and so it was very natural for me ultimately study that. I triple majored at Brown, studying computational biology, economics, and applied math,
Wow.
um, which was a lot of fun. And I think the through line there is I just love learning, and maybe I couldn't decide on ultimately what to study.
Wow.
But I think it ended up being a blessing because I learned how to learn, and
Yeah.
I think it's especially in the, as a founder and as a CEO, you have to be able to be really broad, right? I'm not going to be um, the best engineer. I'm not going to be the best salesperson at our company, the best marketer at our company, but being able to understand and go deep with the best people in the world in these functions are important. And so being able to learn very quickly and go broad and has been super, super beneficial.
Wow. That's spot on, man. Seriously, man. I wish we were together in a live studio. I'd be fist pumping you right now. So, wow. So let me ask you, I got a couple of questions that jumped off my head because of you said how your family came up with doctors. A lot of folks that I know that parents are doctors, they're kind of like pressured or kind of like, you got to be in the medical field. Were you getting that kind of pressure or you do what you want to do?
Yeah, I did have a little bit of pressure to do that. I think it's natural and is well documented in kind of Asian household culture.
A
Um,
100%.
and I think that is certainly a reason why one of my undergrad constant majors is in computational biology as opposed to just strictly computer science. And biology portion of that is a bit of a vestige of being pre-med at one point. But ultimately, I went to grad school in computer science, and I finished that during the 4 years I was at Brown. And
You finished
so,
you finish a master's while you're getting your triple degrees.
yes, yeah.
Do you sleep?
uh,
What
I
time do you do?
my people don't like when I say this, but it's I'll sleep when I die. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
Um, I
the
think,
way you're young.
yeah.
No, dude, that's awesome, man. So I got to ask you because I love Boston, by the way. I'm from New York. So have you visited, I'm sure, Cape Cod? In-
Yeah, absolutely. Cape Cod is beautiful. I love Cape Cod. It's the beaches there are incredible, and the people
Pretty
there
cool.
are so nice.
Yeah, I got an opportunity to go there maybe 2 summers ago. A couple, 3 or 4 weeks. My son played baseball in that league. So it was pretty freaking awesome. So I got to spend time with him, live with a host family and everything. I didn't realize how much people over there love, passionate for baseball. And they welcome to the home and they live there. Like it's still mind boggling to me. And it's a culture of like, it's unbelievable. And what's up with all the ice cream stores at every freaking 10 steps? They
They
love
love
ice cream. Thank God.
they love their ice cream there. Yeah, they love their ice cream, and
The
everybody's
best.
a Red Sox fan and a Pats
Oh yeah.
fan, and yeah, it's a very unique part of American culture that Cape Cod area. I love it.
That's awesome, man. So how did it all happen for you so you went from Boston? How'd you land obviously in San Francisco?
Yeah, I think there were a few steps along the way. I spent some
Okay.
time at Facebook AI research and in Menlo Park, and then I spent some time in at hedge funds actually.
Oh,
Basically, it's called quant trading, which is basically applying AI and statistics and math to trading. And it turns
love it.
out, AI and computers are very good at trading, and you can make a lot of money doing that. And the problems are pretty interesting, and the people are pretty smart. Ultimately, what ends up, what you end up realizing sooner or later is wealth should be a function of the impact you create, not the other way around.
Mm,
So I ultimately left that and started a company with my current co-founder today. We met at Brown. We both studied computer science together. We built
that's
some other companies, and when we were in college together, and which helped us gain financial freedom. And it was really the first time we realized, oh wait, we can turn code into money, into impact,
that's
which was really fun. So we built a few apps in undergrad together, and ultimately I quit my job. We moved to San Francisco to start what would ultimately be Alex AI, and we joined a Y Combinator, which is an incubator here in the Bay, and that's how we got
that's
started.
Man, congrats. And congrats to you and your co-founder. That's great that you guys came up together so you know each other well. It's, being in business is not easy, you know. Now I'll tell you what though, from your credentials, you sound like a first round draft pick, brother. It's like, with everything you have. So I'm a big sports guy. I relate everything to sports. So, any favorite sports I got to know about? So maybe we could relate.
I don't think we're going to relate on sports, Caesar. I think
No?
you got me beat pretty
Yeah.
hard there. Unless we're going to talk maybe tennis or ping pong or chess, poker, maybe.
Okay.
Um, uh, but no, haven't had enough time to dig into
And I
other.
won't even pretend to try to keep up with you in math, brother, at all. At all. I used to run away from it, but this is pretty good. So, man, so I always tell people in the staffing industry, at least I like to say, like, people ask me all the time, how'd you get into the business? I kind of fell into it, right? I feel like staffing finds you. You either love this stuff or you don't. That's what I want to know. Like, it can help us, the community, know did it just find, like, I know you guys, all the credentials in the world, right? Tell me why that one stuck out. How did that all happen for you guys? You and your founder.
Yeah, the I mentioned I spent some time in hedge funds in
Mhm.
New York, and we spend a lot of time when you're at a hedge fund looking at markets,
Yep.
and how you can basically create value in a market. The job market is the largest market in the world by far. It's not even close. The global equities markets, so all the value of all the stocks in the world is about 100 trillion. Global real estate is about 300 trillion, it's about three times that. And the job market is about 1.2, a little over 1 quadrillion, right? What even is a quadrillion? It's 1,000 trillions. And it's a huge market, right? And so, and there's, when you transact, like when you transact in an equities market, you get stocks, right? You get stocks, and then for the real estate, you get houses and things like that. And in the job market, we call that transaction, we call those salaries and wages, right?
That's
Um, the job market is the largest market in the world today, and I argue it's the most impactful. It's what gets people to work. Like the world revolves around people doing things, right? That's what separates us from any other living thing, is the kind of outsized impact that we have as intelligent beings, and we go to work, right? We contribute, we build societies and organizations, etc. And so we knew we wanted to build in this space, and there was a clear why now, right? Recruiting is inherently a services based industry, right? At the end of the day, you have to have a recruiter sit down and do X, Y, Z. I mean, you'll remember you've been in the business for it must have been 30 years or so. So you'll remember
quadrillion.
days when you'd post a job advert in the newspaper,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then the fax machines came along, and you get resumes faxed, right?
Mhm.
And then we've got these incredible companies like the LinkedIn and Indeed, the job boards. Now you can post on these job boards instead, right? And
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And there's just been so many incredible technological evolutions. And I think this is the mother of all evolutions, AI, right? This is
Right.
the first time in history where software can do actual white collar work. AI can write emails. AI can coordinate calendars, right? AI can actually pick up the phone. Alex does thousands and thousands of interviews every single day over phone, over video, over Zoom, right? And that's really exciting, right? It's the first time in history that's ever been possible. And so if you're able to say, hey, look, this thing's never been done before, and it can
Yeah.
have a really big impact and value on the largest market in the world, I mean, that's incredibly exciting. The amount of impact you can have on people is incredible.
It, yeah, I love the way you just broke that down, but you're absolutely correct, man. I feel like sometimes a lot of people underestimate how big this thing is. It's massive. And there's a lot of different specialties and businesses. And what I love everything you just said there, you're passionate about like helping the people, right? And that's big. Um, and you said something really profound. Software can actually do work. That's
Yeah.
somebody asked me like this kid that I know was asking me, my son was home, and I'm like, how big is AI? He was asking me, how big is AI? Is it like kind of the internet? Is it like kind of big? I said, think, how about electricity? Kind of like that. Like this is like massive. and I think it's going to continue. So I definitely have some questions you two a little later that I want to ask you about. Definitely, it's a big bet. Where do you think this? Because this thing's moving so fast. It's like the fastest thing I've ever seen. Like, as far as evolve and adopt. Right. I don't think that even some of those traditional challenges where you know how it is with user communities, it's tough to get people to adopt the change. It's probably the toughest part, at least my job, right? And I don't think they have a choice. People have a choice anymore, like at all. Like, or it could be catastrophic for you. Like if you don't jump on this or make evolve it, I think continuous learning and education has got to be something that is required to do in your job every single day, or you're lost. You know, so um, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna actually give me an idea too about the evolution of the market from the fax machine to like to where it's at now. I have an image in my head that I'm thinking about putting together now. Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
of
So
course.
how did also it's just you two guys have first, right? So what problem like because obviously Alex AI can do a whole lot. Right. You mentioned a lot of different areas in the recruiting process it can handle. I mean, sounds like creative, from resume to like walking into the door. I mean, you still need the human aspect of it, but what use case first did you see that made sense for you to start with to get the buy-in?
The first use case we saw was in the actual interviewing, right? And specifically video interviews.
Okay.
The reason being, it turns out that many recruiters today uh, are non-technical. So, ProSource, for instance, is an IT staffing firm. You might hire, for example, a .NET engineer, right? A .NET engineer, well, it turns out, or your recruiter does not know a lot about .NET, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
100%.
and so, and well, what you would love is you would love if you could have a .NET engineer screen that .NET engineer
Oh,
candidate, but a .NET
absolutely.
engineer is very expensive, right? And you need, that net, the person that has that knowledge is a very expensive person, and they should probably be engineering, right? Well,
That's right.
exactly. And so what we did is we give, well, let's say, hey, what if you had an expert .NET engineer essentially interview all your candidates and just tell you who's real and who's not, who's actually good, and who just has a nice resume, who just has a nice LinkedIn, who just is using ChatGPT on the side to like
That's
answer the questions, and it turns out they don't actually know anything, right?
uh,
And so that was our first product was, hey, interview everybody, hire the best people, right? And so you have a video interviewing component. We expanded to phone. We've expanded
okay.
to scheduling, right? Scheduling with the hiring manager, scheduling with the client, scheduling with the recruiter in the next round. We've expanded to, matching, as I've mentioned before. And ultimately the goal is to say, hey, look, you know, Alex should do all of that busy work. And you, as a human, should be focused on the human aspects, getting more clients, or, closing that candidate with that client. It really convinces that client that they're the best, right, for this
Absolutely.
role. And if you can do that, that is transformative for your business, and that's transformative for the candidates, right? It's a winner for everyone.
Oh man, and I know you're so spot on, man. And I'm glad I used that problem of solving with the interview, video interviewing, and like say because there's a lot of in IT especially there's a lot of what's a appropriate way to say this falsification or exaggeration. Let's say a little bit on resumes. This brings you right to the do they have it or not? Because recruiters, it's impossible for them to. They might be familiar with a skill set or two, but it's like IT feels like saying the medical field, right? You cannot impossible to know everything, right? So
That's right.
I could imagine you have video interviewing the capabilities in all different types of technology. It doesn't matter. You have it could be an endless range.
That's right. Yeah, that's the beauty of, our first, initial customer segment was, and our still one of our largest is staffing firms, particularly actually, IT staffing firms. And we also work with healthcare and light industrial, of course, et cetera.
Okay.
But that's a really great starting off point. Those were our first initial customers. And that's great because it turns out staffing firms hire for so many different types of roles. Right. And so Alex needs to be able to be knowledgeable in that. And that's why we've, partnered with, great folks like, OpenAI to have the best models so that, that the AI Alex, that's when she's joining that call, Alex is a pro in that subject, whether that's a .NET engineer or a travel nurse or a forklift operator or a senior accountant. Right? Alex is knowledgeable, right? And can really vet those candidates and let you know who's good. And by the way, it turns out if you have an AI that's doing those interviews, candidates like that because they know what they're getting. It's standardized and it's a great experience, right? Alex can answer any questions that the candidate might have. What's the next step in the process, right? Things like that in a way that, maybe a human recruiter, maybe they didn't have that cup of coffee, right? Or maybe, I've even seen instances where the name of the candidate is the name of the recruiter's, ex or
Um,
something like that. And there's
True.
just so many different biases like that
Yeah.
AI can just eliminate or significantly reduce.
Oh my God. I think it's a massive competitive advantage. If you explain that to your clients, I mean, I think one of the biggest feedbacks I've gotten for years is like, recruiters don't know anything. And, there's a lot that do, and they all want to do the right things. They all really do want to get the right people fundamentally, right? But there's some still that just submit resumes and make it tough, right? So the managers, they don't want to spend, they call it not even 5 minutes because you got to give somebody a courtesy. Even though you can identify in the first 3 minutes if they have the skill set or not, they still got to probably waste 15 to 20 minutes as a courtesy. And that adds up. And that's how you lose customers, right? They're not going to prioritize your candidates. So I got to imagine some of the results for your customers, their clients were probably prioritizing their candidates over others.
Yeah. And here's what's interesting too. I'll add 2 points of data that I think are useful. One is, it took time to get that interview on the books in the first place, right? So scheduling, going back and forth, emailing and texting these candidates to get them on is it can be difficult, right? And so you can essentially have this, AI, and Alex is this like executive assistant for you to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
your calendar is filled with people that are actually worth your time, is really great. And it turns out, when you think of the job market as a market, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you realize is, well, markets change because markets that are, you have two participants, right? Candidates are also using AI, right?
That's
Candidates
right.
also, use AI for their resumes, for their cover letters. They're using AI on their LinkedIn. They have AI up during the interview, right? And so what that means for our recruiters today is, I'm going to post a job. I'm going to get 300 applicants, and all the resumes look the same now
They
because they're
do.
all
They
throwing the
do.
name of the same AI models. And so it just makes it so difficult to really understand who's good and who's not. And the
That's
solution to
right.
that is, well, let's let my own AI, help out with that.
No, just like guys, because we do a lot of interviews with a lot of chief information security officers, and they're saying like, it's with security and hackers, you give AI these type of weapons, bad actors, it's another level. You got to fight AI with AI. You got to combat it. You got to match it up. I'm making matchups, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. Something that I saw that seemed like it's cool for candidates, but I don't know how, as a hiring manager, I don't think it's cool. Is all these services that you could send 1,000 submittals in 5 minutes. And I'm like, that's just killing us, killing the client. It's fatigue. It's too much. It's, who knows if they even submitting to, when you talk about thousands of openings, I mean, they submitting to the right things or they just blasting this stuff. So some of the stuff is awesome, but some of the stuff can be, I don't know if they're understanding the impact they can have on the business and slow down hiring.
Yeah, you really think about it if, maybe through this lens, I'm not sure what ATS ProSource is on today, but I'd ask is, that piece of technology, do you think that makes more or less work for your recruiters today?
A lot
Right?
more.
But a lot, if I think about even email today, right? How
Oh,
many of the emails that you get today, is it making work or how reducing work for you? Right?
oh, you know
Um,
the answer to
you're
that.
right, these smartphones, right? And so, like, AI really is, it's the first time in history where, if we get this right, it is technology that will reduce work for us, right?
That's
Because there's
right.
just so much noise in the world, and you can have this intelligent being filter all that out for you, do all the busy work, all that stuff like that, and just make sure that what's coming to you is worth it. I think, I mean, even a basic example of this is, if I'm sure maybe you have an iPhone, I know,
Hmm.
uh, Apple now has the like, it'll AI will pick up the phone for you, right?
Mm,
And then screen them for you and let you know if they're worth your time or if they're a scam, right?
mm.
Think about that. Now I don't, now I know if anybody's, calling me, it's probably a worthy pickup.
That's
And so there are a lot
filter.
of like that.
I love it. So let me ask you about the role, because obviously, you're solving a big problem and you're making the companies way more efficient. And, when from a scale perspective, I got to imagine this is favorable for a business owner, right? Um, how do you foresee, like, say, the recruiter role? How do you see it evolving? Do you see it evolving?
Absolutely. I see a lot of it evolving. I spend a lot of my time speaking with leaders in staffing and talent acquisition,
Okay,
recruiting, HR. And something that I I I've noticed and that I like to, mention is especially in this is specifically for corporate recruiting, but I think it applies here is TA moves from talent acquisition to talent advisory, right? That's what TA will look like, right? And that applies as well for staffing, right? Our staffing recruiters will turn into people that are picking up phones and making dials and talking to candidates that aren't qualified and reviewing resumes into something much more strategic, something that AI can't do, right? AI can't build a connection with the best candidates. AI
Mm-mm.
can't, doesn't understand the relationship between, the staffing firm and the client, right? AI doesn't understand, oh, we just placed this candidate before, and now, I know that they're not looking, they're not enjoying that job. We can move them somewhere else. Like AI just isn't going to have that context, and so we need to make sure that the humans are up leveled to be more strategic. And I think a reasonable analogy for this is you're already seeing this in roles like software engineering, right? There are a lot of, we're based here in San Francisco. We have, sort of a lot of engineers here. We also have an incredible engineering team. And the way that engineers work today, software engineers, it's almost like they're managing their own, engineering interns that are AI. Like each one of these is AI. And so
That's
like
right.
one engineer is going to have they're going to have one AI working on this bug, one AI working on that bug, one AI working on making this, user interface better. That's happening today. And so
That's
software engineers are now just becoming managers of their own AI employees.
mm,
Uh, that that comparison will certainly hold for other roles, whether that's recruiting in this instance. We're already seeing that in customer support, in legal,
that's right.
in 911 dispatching. So if you actually call 911, I hope you never have to. The AI will. There's a good chance AI is going to actually pick up that call,
Oh
right?
wow, that's
Because well, what happens if there aren't enough dispatchers or there aren't enough people to pick up the phone call? They're going to leave you
absolutely
hanging. That would be
yeah,
terrible, right?
be horrible.
Terrible. Exactly.
It could
And
be
so
horrible.
great work to do.
So I love that. So it's like graduating, like that maybe this. Have you heard the term of like this orchestration role? Like
Exactly. Absolutely.
that kind of mentioned. Like I love the TA to talent advisors, and they can spend more time spending time with the client, the hiring managers being more strategic on the folks, the type of folks they hire and what type of work, so they can help shape that probably, right? And recruiters, I can definitely see the same. How about like, let's say on a personal level, let me just ask you this, you being a founder and, building this business, it's super exciting. It's got a lot of cool stuff. It's, not only, I wouldn't even say disruptive, you're just helping companies get to another level, right? Getting better at what they do. Um, how do you guys deal with, let's say, the adoption? Because traditionally, I've seen a lot of recruiters or just people in our industry are a little slow on the adoption cycle.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think there's I think WIFM is very important, right? What's in it for me, right? And
So,
I spend so much of my time talking with our customers and our end users, and it turns out that you know a lot of what recruiters are doing today, and of course there are exceptions, but a lot of it is just are things that aren't particularly useful or interesting or are accretive to them in the long term, or that it's going to be difficult to see how what they're doing the day to day is long term accretive for their career, right? I
yes.
mean, does scheduling and coordinating, or does reviewing resumes, or looking at LinkedIn, or trying to understand if this person is cheating on their interview? Like, are these things that are going to be valued in your career in 10 to 15 years, right? Or do you want to be focused on strategy? Do you want to be focused on building relationships? Do you want to be focused on helping clients, right? That feels much more useful, much more strategic, not only for the business, but for you professionally, right?
100%.
And I think if you can change, shift that mindset to, hey, I'm being, replaced, to, hey, I'm being up leveled, right? I'm moving forward in my career. That's incredibly exciting. Incredibly exciting. Uh,
Reframing the mindset, right? Like it's all about perspective, right? So like I love that you just said that. Like, you're up leveling them, right? Because that other stuff is time consuming and it's repetitive and it doesn't end. It's just like it just doesn't end. And a lot of moving parts in that whole hiring cycle just to get somebody through the door. A lot of people may not understand how many things got to go right, right? So would you say it's safe to say? Because I tell people AI is it leveled the playing field for especially small businesses, right? I feel like we can punch above our weight a little bit, right? Um, I look at that the same way for recruiters. Like this is your shot to run your own team of agents, your own team. Like you should be able to cover more ground, more recs, more income, right? With less hours or less work. That's how I look at it. And I'm an old school guy too. I'm like, you know, grinding late and stuff like that. And I, can't do that too long, right? It gets
Yeah.
old, but like using these tools and the solutions that you guys do, I mean, you're solving that problem, man. So but when you guys did get resistance, um, is this stuff that you help your companies with? You guys, if you do, how do you do that?
We absolutely do. And I think I think it's important to understand the reasoning behind that, right? And the reason we help is because, well, you have to empathize with your customers. You need to understand that, yeah, they're taking a bet, right? This is new technology, right? They've
Sure.
never bought, an AI employee before. What does that even really mean? They've never managed an AI employee before. How do you manage the performance of an AI employee, right? And so you you need to be able to affect very rigorous change management for your customers, and be able to ensure that you're ensuring that the kind of there are new workflows and new actions that these customers are taking, these recruiters are taking, that they're uptaking and using the technology, and two, that they're actually seeing value, right? How much of
Yeah.
your time now, how much of your time now is spent, on a Zoom? I bet, it's reduced a bunch. That's great. That's great. How much of
See?
your time is spent with gold medalists? Oh, a lot more. Fantastic. That's great. How much of your time is spent writing, the same dang email, or, sending like a sequence automation, right? Blasting out email, like, oh, much less now. Alex is taking care of it. Fantastic. That's great. That's great. Right. And I think that's really, really exciting. And it's all about measuring, right?
See?
Measuring the actions that are being taken, the workflows that are had, measuring the actual value that you're creating for customers through software, and making that extremely accessible directly in the product. Like, I can tell you, I can pull up any customer and tell you how many hours of work Alex did that week. And it's so funny because,
Wow.
I can pull up a customer dashboard, and it's public, or it's available to them. And it says, Alex did 400 hours of work. It's almost crazy because it's
Wow.
like 6 hours of work.
How
That's
does,
like, we're only
yeah.
24 hours in a day. How's that even
Yeah.
possible? Because at any given moment, Alex is on the phone with, 5 different candidates, and sending
Wow.
out, a bunch of emails and following up with candidates. And it's really, frankly, incredible, the work that's being done by AI. And I tell folks, this is, despite how incredible it is, there's still a lot of work to do, and this is the worst it's ever going to be, right? It's only going to get better from
That's
here.
right.
And so, it's a very exciting time, and our customers are yeah, have been very, very pleased with us so far.
That's phenomenal, man. So let me ask you from a recruiting, that's one perspective, right? That's great. Delivery and faster, scale and all that kind of stuff. How do you guys, as Alex, have the capabilities on the business development side of the house? Because that's
That's
a
a good
big,
question.
big point.
Yeah, we've taken a relatively opinionated approach to this. That is the following. Um, we do affect some change in business development. I can give you a concrete example, right? So it turns out, when Alex screens and interviews everybody and tells you who the best people are, Alex writes a beautiful report telling you exactly why they're the best candidate for that role. And it turns out the delivery manager loves that, because they can send that as part of the kit directly to the client,
Sure.
right? And the client loves that, right? Clients always looking for a reason to say maybe this isn't the right candidate, things like that. But Alex is helping the delivery folks in selling that candidate to the client, right? I grilled them on .NET, and they were really good. You told me that this role, technical communication, is really important, because they talk to non-technical people, and so they need to be able to have really good communication skills. Well, I had a 20-minute long conversation with them, and their communication skills are great, right? Oh, by the way, I have the full 20-minute long interview recording if you want it, so you can go back and listen to it and see for yourself.
Love it.
Um, and delivery managers love that. Clients love that because it gets them on the same page, right? I can prove to you with data, with recordings, right? With all of
Data.
these that this candidate is the best candidate for you, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Not just
that's one
words for it.
concrete that we use.
Yeah. So you help, it helps with like the closing or just how helping to prioritize the client, leveling up. You have the proof points to back it up just by saying, yeah, I talked to them. They're really sharp, right? Super sharp, right? That's typically what we get. And you got to interview them. So you go deeper and you show the proof points. I love that, man. Because,
And
put all that together. It's a lot of work.
it speeds up the time to fill too, right? Because
Mhm.
now the client knows, oh, this has already been asked, this has been asked, right? And so I know, okay, now I know what I should be double clicking on, what I should be emphasizing in that next round, right? So I don't have to ask all these same questions again. I don't know what this, the staffing firm asked. Well, now I do, and I know that they've dug in really well, right? And then we also have this Ask Alex feature, and so the client or the hiring manager, whomever, can actually just go into that report and say, you know, hey Alex, I saw you interviewed this candidate, they seem great. What other follow up questions should I ask in this next round? Right, and then Alex will give a
That's
thank you.
cool.
Alex was on again. Alex interviewed everybody for this role.
That's
Alex
cool.
was on those calls, and Alex can say, "Great question. This candidate is really strong, but if I were to dig in deeper, I'd go into their experience here that I didn't have time to go
Wow.
go deeper on." And so
That's
yeah, really cool.
That nailed it. That was, let me tell you, that's a great nugget right there. That's a separator. I love that one. Because you're getting that client bought in as well in the process. They're involved, right? Because, right. We can ask like, if they have that ability to have access to that and that data, why not use it? It's powerful. Oh my God. I'm pumped. I'm already a big fan, Brody. I got to get a demo of this, man. I got to get Adrian to give me a call and set this up.
Adrian's great. Yeah, he's
Yeah, man.
he's
He's one of my favorites. So let me ask you this. You talked about a lot of cool things, and I could just probably tell your culture, your environment is, it got a good vibes and everything, right? Um, Outside of that, like, what have you learned along the way? Because entrepreneurship is not easy.
I think I'm a very different person than I was 12 months ago, certainly 20 months ago when we first launched. I I uh, I think people, like we as people, as humans, we intuitively or naturally we what I say is we scale linearly. That is, like, I perceive time linearly, right?
Okay.
And so I learn, relatively linearly, right? But if we get this company right, as this startup continues to scale, the company will grow exponentially,
Absolutely.
right? And so there's this kind of difference, right? If the company is scaling exponentially, but naturally I scale, I learn linearly, then at some point the company is going to outgrow me, right? And then
Mm.
that holds for not only myself but everybody at this company. And so you need to be able to challenge yourself and say, how can I continue to grow exponentially? Who do I need to be in 1 to 6 months, right? And
One
where am I today?
short
And
period. It's not like two, right?
yeah,
That's all.
that's exactly. And so, um, I think that's a really strong mindset to have. And I think it's a very particular one given given how quickly we move at this company. Um, and I think if we can continue to do that, I think we'll continue to learn, we'll continue to move, we'll continue to grow. And as you said, the score takes care of itself.
It does, man. I mean, revenue solves a lot of problems. Also, let me ask you, what are some of the big? Thank you for sharing that. That was really good perspective, um, and it makes a lot of sense. You're spot on. And what was resonating with me too is like I used to think, well, you know, you better do something in 6, 12 months. You're probably a lot shorter than that. This thing is moving quick. I feel like all the different major platforms, OpenAI, Claude, all these guys, they one up each other every 3 or 4 weeks max. Right now, this guy has a little more computing power, whatever. They're always kind of looking. to continue to evolve very fast, and it'll probably just get even faster, right? Because it just gets stronger. Um, what would you say outside of technology? Because it takes a lot more things outside of technology to run a company successfully, right? What are some of the lessons you learned, or what you maybe could have had a do over on?
I think do-overs aren't useful because you always learn, right? You either succeed or you learn, right? And so,
Right.
but certainly, I think something that should be emphasized is how to manage human systems and how to communicate well with people. I worked pretty hard in school, and the what ends up happening inevitably is if you're a bookworm and you're always studying and things like that, you can lose out on some important communication skills and ability to to
Yeah.
work with others. Maybe you become more introverted, maybe, um, and so if you can develop the ability to motivate people, to have them do the best work of their lives with you, and to say, hey, look, I, if we get this right, this could be the last job you ever have. I think is a good skill to have, be able to communicate well with your team. And um, yeah, I think we've done a good job with that, and there's a lot more to do. But yeah, that skill seems quite important, especially as AI does more busy work and can't really automate
Yeah.
human communication.
No, I love it, man. You keep it real, which I like. I love these answers, man. And by the way, for the audience, just so you know, there's no questions, like there's no scripts here. Where this is all freestyle and letting everybody know. This is just all freestyle. So let me double click on that a little bit, if you don't mind, because I think this is important. I think this is very, very important. How do you guys got a great opportunity, phenomenal opportunity. Wow. I mean, you talk about some of the major, supporters around you. You still got to wake up every day. Like it doesn't make it happen by itself. Right. Um, how do you guys deal with failure?
We actually, this is technically incorrect, but it gets us directionally correct. That is, we actually try to maximize failures.
Cheers.
Something we say internally is make the bet. That is,
Make the bet.
make the bet,
Make
bet.
the
Yeah,
bet. Okay.
make the bet. That is, every decision that you make is inherently, it's a bet, right? Like there is some possible return, that's associated with it, and there's a risk associated with it. So it is like a bet or an
Legacy.
investment, and so you really just want to move quickly and decide, like, okay, is this something that is worth taking a bet on?
Hmm.
It turns out, when you think of a startup, you often think, oh, it's a high innovation and you need a lot of insights to win. Well,
Hmm.
insights are actually depreciating assets, right? It's your ability to execute on them and your ability to actually invest in that insight. That is what will, allow you to do well and build a good company. And so,
Wow.
we have lots of insights. Many of them are right, many of them are wrong, but our ability to execute on them, fail very quickly at many of them, but roll those bets into the next bet, I think is what makes us strong as a company, and our ability to make decisions very quickly is what makes us strong as a company.
That's huge, man. That's damn, man. Well beyond, like, you guys are chapters ahead from a mindset perspective, and I give you a lot of props for that, man. I mean, that's really cool to hear. I'm figuring like, all right, let me see if because it's all cool with tech and it's fun, it's crazy. Tell me the balance of your team. Is it all engineers? Like, how do you guys, are you an 80, 90% plus? Or like, tell me about the environment you guys have.
Yeah. So in about a year's time, we've gone from um, we've 10x headcount. So we're a little over 30 people today, um,
Congrats.
and we have a good balance between product and engineering, customer success, sales. We have other roles, operations and design, and et cetera, marketing, of course. It's been a good balance. I think one unique insight that we have is, um, sales is very hard to have delegate to AI. I think that'll be the case for a very long time, if not forever. I want to buy from people that I understand, that I know, that I can trust, just me personally, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. And so we invest a lot of resources in go to market and making sure that, hey, if we're going to do business together, I treat it like a partnership. AI is not going anywhere in the next, several decades. And so you want a partner that can, make sure that they're going to be with you during that time and evolve and always give you the best products and services. And so that's something that we focus a lot on. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you can build, I think of the company as just one big happy customer machine. And so if you do a good job and just, producing many, many happy customers at scale, you can build a pretty successful company. And so that's really our North Star in
Yeah.
operationalizing the company.
You got to forgive me. I look down a lot because I'm still old school and I write down notes, even though this is being recorded, right? Because let me tell you, I can tell you right now, the marketing team, the squad that we have is going to have a field day with some of these posts that you put together today. I love that. You build one big customer machine. I love that, man. I mean, it sounds like whatever role you are in, it doesn't mean in the company. It sounds like all 30 are, you know, either all, we're all kind of either functional engineers or some are deeper engineers, some are all sales. Everybody's got to be a salesperson to some respect, right? Just different roles of it, aspects of it, right? Um, sales is such a hard thing, right? Because people got to know who you are, they got to trust you, they got to like you. That's takes time, unless it's the timing's right, right? So there's a number of things, but what I see right off the rip is that, I mean, outside the credentials you get, that you share with me are super impressive. Like I'm telling you, first round draft pick, right? You can see it all. Like here are the stats, brother, like the triple degrees and all that fun stuff. But you keep it real, which I really appreciate, and you seem very honest about everything, and you really, you know, it, I think that's going to be a big separator for your company, man. I think people are going to lead you, bro. They're gonna follow you, bro.
Authenticity is what I can promise.
Guaranteed, right?
Guaranteed.
So, have you had any, challenges? Like, what has been the biggest challenge your organization so far?
There are a lot.
Mhm.
I know, as I mentioned, we fail often. And so, that's, which is the kind of logical thing to do because you get to make many bets and then you can learn from them. But it can be emotionally difficult if you're not in that
Yeah.
mindset, right? There are a lot of roles and companies that you go to where failing is actually not allowed. You think about a bank, or you
Oh,
think about big tech where you really or Amazon Web Services. That can't go down, right? So you can't accept
yeah.
failure, and so it can be a mindset shift for many. I think, that some of the hardest times that I think of are really at the start, of the company, when we were in Y Combinator. I mean, it was difficult. Again, I spent my whole, spent a lot of time coding and before this and building things and um, building the initial version of of Alex, getting an AI to actually talk to you. That was the first time in history in recruiting, certainly that was a thing. And we had to build it all from scratch and use like WebSockets and things like that. There were just no vendors for that. And then automatically or very quickly moving into and sales and go to market and something that you've never done before, right? And so it's not something that they teach you, and you just have to learn on the fly. And I think that was a very um, difficult and formative time in the company's founding. We were pulling pretty crazy hours, like 20 hours a day for 7 days a week for you know almost a year, 6 months at least. And and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, it
No, I
was pretty,
believe it. I truly
you know,
believe it.
yeah, pretty intense. And the eye bags are kind of proof of that.
Somebody
Uh,
on the track shouldn't have the eye bags. I not, you shouldn't have those. But
uh,
that's what it takes, though. You're right. That's what it takes. But it evolves. Like it gets, there's different stages, right? It's probably like my fourth startup, like startup for different companies. I'll tell you, like it's, they're all different. They're all challenging, but like that, it is exciting though too. What keeps you going? Like That's the part. Like, no, even like little successes, they might not translate to dollars yet, but there's successes along the way that you don't want to like take light of, right? Sometimes it's not just all money, that keeps score for other people that we have to answer to, right? However, there's wins along the way, man, because you know if you're in position or not. And that takes time. And unfortunately, things take time, especially if it's something new that you guys are doing. Wow, man, you guys are kicking it. I love some of the success you guys have already. I love the authenticity. I love it all, man. All right, so you're in, I call it like the major league capital of talent, right? Attracting talent, and keeping talent. When you read everything that you see, I get all these newsletters as well, just like everybody else. I mean, you got some of these big players that you mentioned that are offering, you know, like millions and millions of dollars for talent, right? Like founder packages, like almost big exit packages. I'm like, really? Wow, I never even heard of something like that. Um, how do you deal with that? How do you combat that?
So I think we fall into different segments. If you want to work for OpenAI, then
Mhm.
I argue that, you know, Alex AI and OpenAI are very different companies. And so, if you're even deciding between us, I don't think that's the right. I think you're looking for very different things, right? No, and a company like OpenAI, or which is essentially a big tech company at this point, or a Facebook, or Anthropic, what have you. These are big tech companies, and you're not gonna. I mean, what you get is stability. What you don't get is, which is what we offer, is ownership. What we offer is autonomy. What we offer is highly concentrated talent within this company, right? What we can offer and what we can almost guarantee is um, respect and freedom and independence to do what you want to do, right? And the easy way to think about it is I don't have the time to micromanage you, right? And the best people don't want to be managed. The best people want to be, want to be able to, go off and absolutely just produce and do the best work of their lives here. They don't need
Sure.
to be managed, right? And so yeah, I think we're going after is a completely different set of talent. We have lost, bidding wars to OpenAI and Anthropic a few times. They do get some pretty good people, but
Mhm.
you know, frankly, we're we're not looking to compromise on culture or on what we believe is the recipe to build a good, strong team.
Tell people that's what you're selling. That's what you're going to get with you guys, right? They're going to get your heart. They're going to get everything, all of you. And let me ask you this. So you're right. People they like a lot of autonomy. They like creativity. They do their own thing. And you're absolutely right. The last thing you need to do is micromanage anybody as a founder with 1,000 things you have to do, right? Every single day. Are you like an in office or remote or like global or like how are you spread out?
We are almost entirely in person today. We have a beautiful office here in San Francisco.
Man,
We're
Aaron, I got to give you some props, man. Again, that's great. That's great news for you. Great news for you, and I think you know that.
Yeah, we're very opinionated on that. That is, well, it turns out if you hire really, really smart people and really productive people, they want to work with other very smart and productive people, right? It's like 1 + 1 = 1,000,000, right? Very like they just we fuel each other, right?
Absolutely.
And so, uh, we find that to be particularly important, especially in the stage that we're at, where we're moving very quickly and growing very quickly. And customer success is just going to go to engineering and say, "Hey, I have this customer that wants this. Can we build it?" And then, by lunchtime, it's built, and you can share it with the customer directly, right? And that
Wow.
happens the same day. That happens today. That happened today, actually,
No shit.
for one of our yeah,
So you can spin, you can
and
pivot, you can move, right?
yeah, we move at an incredible pace. I mean, the same thing happens with like, sales and, whatever it is, like design, like, oh, like, hey, like, we have a sales deck. Can we update this design? Cause I think it would make the messaging better. And I think it would, resonate really well with this, really big account that I have a demo with later today. Boom, give me 10 minutes. Boom. And it looks great now. Right. And it's that kind of speed, being in that room together. or being in the
Hmm.
office together. You just can't, like, it's going to be very hard to frankly, to compete with us.
Yeah,
Um, when we have this kind of culture.
absolutely. So I'm going to be making a trip soon to up there because my guy lives there. I got to stop by and see this. I got to see it in my eyes, man.
You got to do. We have an
Um,
office warming next week. If you come to San Francisco, you should come. Where you're invited.
what do you have going on?
An office warming. We're moving
An
into a new
office
office
warming.
space.
Oh,
Yeah,
congrats, man. That's great. Yeah, I think it's going to be probably February-ish. Um,
see you then.
so like he's been convincing me to come. We got some client meetings as well. So trying to tie it up, bring the wife to do I never did the Napa Valley thing. That's for her. So like, I'm definitely gonna take advantage of that. Since my kids are older now, so it's a little, we don't have to like, we can go out every now and then right now, and you're gonna have that chapter of your life soon too. Not, probably sooner than you think sometimes. But
Yeah,
this is phenomenal, man. I got nothing but like incredible respect for you, brother. I'm excited to see where you guys go. Like I wish I had a fast forward button because I just feel like I'd love to see like, by the end, God, by the end of this year, where Alice is going to be at. I mean, I'm going to take, obviously a look under the hood a little bit just from my organization as well. Um, because everything you mentioned is like, those are pain points in any staffing organization, in any staffing. So, I'm excited about the problems you're solving or you're kind of putting like nitrous into like, to a Corvette, you know what I'm saying? Like taking it to another level, right? So I'm excited about that. Let me ask you a couple big bets. Since you mentioned betting, where do you feel like, I know you said like this thing moves fast, but like how far do you see, and it could be any industry. Let's take a bet in the staffing industry. 1, 2, 3 years down. How far do you see, this type of, technology? How far would it go within the staffing agency world? Like how much more would it be able to capable of doing?
I think a better question to ask is what won't it do?
That's true. Probably
Right.
right.
I think that's a better question, because again, it's only a matter of time before, if you think about what a recruiter does today, like what wouldn't be able to be be able to be reproduced by an all-knowing AI agent like Alex, right? And answering emails, responding to phone calls, sending texts to candidates, updating the applicant tracking system, and all these things that we've talked about, showing the best candidates to the client, and these are all things that will be done. I think there are things that will take a lot more time and may not be done by AI. So I think about things like getting new clients, right? Like,
Client acquisition, right? That's
will
still
be exactly.
human. Well, let me ask you this question more like, because you made me think of something else a little bit there. What do you feel? You see the traditional models today in staffing companies, right? They all have a lot of the same blueprints. What do you think that new agency model will look like with this type of capability?
It's hard to know for certain. Um, I think that a few things about the future of staffing or recruiting will be true on the agency side. I believe that there is an opportunity for the next Randstad to be built, right? As you talked about, AI, new technology benefits the smaller players because they can move quicker and they can adopt new technologies and make these bets. And so I expect that there will be the next, Randstad or Kelly or, whoever that might be, that will get made, that they're being made today. There will be a new generation of these larger companies. I think what's also true, which we've already discussed, and so I won't belabor the point, that is the recruiter role will shift dramatically. And we'll wait for that to occur, or rather, we're the ones helping to bring that future forward, or
Mhm.
closer to the present, rather. I think the pricing model for staffing will likely change as well.
Okay.
There will probably be a closer race to the bottom because it turns out, today, if ProSource uses, Alex, maybe, gross margins go from 10% to 30 or 40% because my recruiters can go from having 10 requisitions at any given point to 100 requisitions at any given point, right? Because they don't need to do as much work per requisition, right? But it's
True.
only a matter of time to until other staffing firms are doing that too, and then the gross margins will need to get will need to be reduced again, right? And so, your competitor is going to offer, lower or better prices to clients over the long term, right?
Good.
Technology
Okay.
in general deflates. Technology is deflationary in general, so
Mhm.
we'll probably see that in the staffing segment as well. Um, I can go on, but I think these are the major
Those are
points that
good. Those are good. I
I.
definitely see. I think it's beyond spot on all of these. I love they said some of those big players are being built today. They may not even know it yet, but they're being the velocity that they're able to going to be operate. I don't think they understood that they can even be able capable to do it based on the size of their company because old models. You know.
And what I would say though is I would say the big players are moving pretty quickly. So I think
Mm.
some of the ones that I mentioned today, there are, many of them are already customers, and so they
Mhm.
are they
Good.
are adopting they're adopting technology pretty quickly.
Smart.
However, I still believe that the smaller players will just move much quicker. And there's definitely an opportunity for the next big staffing firms to be built today.
I love that. So let me. It's probably want to be repetitive, but I do want to like ask you in a way, like if you have your best friend that you grew up with and says, "Hey, I'm starting a IT staffing organization," I think I'm gonna know the answer, but like, what advice would you give them in this current day?
Are they starting with their own capital? Do they, tell me a bit more about that. I want to get this right. This is my best friend. I want to get this advice right for them.
Good. Um, let's take it they're starting their own capital.
Okay. And they have capital. They can do that. Maybe
Yeah, they
they're
have.
they're okay.
Yeah, they were maybe a successful salesperson. They have money. They have enough money, but yeah, I would say, well, kind of like myself. When I first started my staffing company, I worked for Tech Systems for a long time, and I ran their market down here. So pretty decently successful guy. But you can only make certain limits, right? So you have enough to be, you know, guess enough to get started.
So then there are more questions I can ask, but I think what I think a piece of advice I would say is because you don't have the baggage of a staffing firm already, that gives you an immense amount of freedom to take bets across the board and see things that might stick or might not stick. So, the obvious example would be like try to use new technology, right? So maybe don't use the old ATS that everybody uses. There could be a new one that's actually pretty good and that's AI powered and has really great matching and searching capabilities, right? That I
Sure.
bet you a lot of big ones would love to be using, but it's just too difficult at this point to change off and do a new
Oh,
ATS, right? And that'll probably it's going to apply for other things like sales tools. Obviously, and of course, you should try out, and use Alex, of course. But sales, there are a lot of great sales tools that are just so good nowadays.
mm,
There are really, that are great for business development. There are just such good tools for like marketing nowadays, right? I'm sure your marketing team looks at them too. Like, turns out maybe I don't need to, hire a content intern to write LinkedIn posts or blog posts. Like maybe I can have AI do that, or and
that's
there are a lot of great tools there. And so, and we're seeing this across the board here in Silicon Valley. I mean, there are billion-dollar companies being built today by just a handful of people, right? Like three or four
that's
people. Like that's a thing now, and that certainly wasn't possible even 5-10 years ago. That's
100%.
being built today, and I see no reason why that relation wouldn't hold for the staffing business. Isn't that the whole? I mean, that's the whole thesis, right? Is you need less people to run a really strong staffing business. That's what Alex is. That's the thesis there. And so, if you can do that, you're going to do pretty
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I definitely. And kind of my take on that too is I agree with you 100%. I think it's or have the make room salary cap room for repurpose resources to do more client business development at a different scale. right? Because you're able to like, punch above your weight and you could do more with less and probably even pay people even more, right? They'll definitely make more, but you can afford to pay somebody, get that quarterback, that first round quarterback that has a lot of good capabilities, just needs the resources behind it. That is one of the biggest complaints salespeople have in our industry is that they don't have enough recruiting support. It sounds with your solution, it sounds like they have all the recruiting support they need in the world, right? They just got to get. I guess let me ask you this. A good one to ask you is like, has Alex solved the whole, qualification of the requirements part? Because getting intake from clients is to me where you win and lose right off
Yeah,
the rip.
that's a very difficult question. It's something that we took, or we are taking a very close look at, that is like having Alex be a part of that intake meeting session, and Alex just sits on the call and can, provide, feedback or use that to make the interview even better for candidates so that you're really finding the right people. Um,
Mm,
what Alex does do is that Alex does take into account any intake meeting notes, and when Alex is creating the, scoring rubric for that interview or the interview questions, we call that the interview guide.
uh-huh,
um, Alex uh, Alex will provide suggestions and say, "Hey, look, I've created this interview guide for this rec. It's, it's eight questions, and these are the things I'm going to score on. Would you like me to add this part? Because it wasn't in the intake meeting notes. It wasn't in, but I want to recommend it because it's, something that I think could be useful." And then the human recruiter that's managing Alex can say, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Add that to the the interviews," or "No, that's not a good idea. We don't need to do that," and et cetera. And so that is something that again, it's interesting. It's that relationship between the orchestrator and and Alex.
hmm
Um, Quite interesting. You want to find that balance between control, flexibility, and performance,
I agree.
and that's going to be an important part of human AI interaction.
So in your organization, let's say, because you mentioned it's very important to make sure that your customers are successful. Um, how much training do you guys provide support there?
For our customers,
Yeah.
yeah, we take that stuff pretty seriously. We Every onboarding is relatively different. We try to get it done as quickly as possible. Uh, every staffing customer, I think that's true, or well over a majority of our staffing customers have like dedicated support with a dedicated customer success manager that actually runs trainings with your recruiters,
Okay.
right? Because the way that we think about our business is, look, if no one's using the thing, then what are we doing here? Right. I mean, I wouldn't have, I'm not going to quit, I shouldn't have quit my job and raised all this capital just to build a crummy piece of software no one's using. Right.
Yes.
That's
Not the
not
name.
we're here. Right. And so, it's about making sure that the customers are not only using it, but getting a lot of value out of it. So we do these training sessions, we do onboarding. We even go really depth. We have an engineer dedicated to that account to every customer.
Oh,
Because it turns out, right, like if I have a problem, let's say I have a problem with a piece of software, like
hmm
I kind of want to talk to someone that can actually solve the problem, like an engineer. I don't want to talk to someone that's based overseas and that creates a ticket and I need to wait 24 hours to hear back
no,
from
yeah.
them, right?
No.
It's another reason why, a majority, like our whole customer success team is based here in the United
Oh,
States,
that's
is
good.
so that, you're talking to a human that speaks English and understands your problems. All of our engineering team is also based here directly here in San Francisco. They're all sitting
That's good.
outside, working.
You could
Um,
look at them right now if you need to. Here's
exactly.
my
Exactly.
customer support team. Here's my engineers, all of it. I love it.
Exactly. And that's what matters, right? Is that attentiveness, that, that we're here for you. We are a customer
Yeah.
centric company. We wouldn't be here without our customers, and it's a partnership. We're not just another vendor, right?
Yeah.
And if we can do
Love
that and
that.
we can continue to do that at scale, like that's a winner for you as a customer, right? And also, a winner for us because we get to build a good company with you.
100%. They say their success is your success. It's really that simple. The way I look at your model is like, if they're successful, they're just, I mean, how do they not, you become the lifeblood of the organization, right? So you're the basically recruiting engine for them. So, and it's going to continue to evolve. So, I mean, I love the model, man. Congrats to you and your co-founder and the people that support, the guys that walk in every day to work with you guys every day. Hats off to them because it sounds like you guys got like a nice thing cooking over there, you know? So, to give any advice to, again, our community as we pay it forward, what advice would you want to give some of these? Let's say, I'm going to give you two audiences. There's been a lot of challenge right now with a lot of, kids in IT getting computer science degrees. And I get approached all the time, and just, I think there's a stat out there, 70% of them, they can't get in the door right now. Right. Any advice to that workforce community there?
You can't control the macro environment, but you can control what direction you move in and how fast you move in that direction. In other words, how hard you work, right? Like, you can get mad and upset that, software engineering openings, if you're a CS grad, are down and it's difficult to get a job. But that's play the ball where it lies, right? And that's the hand that you've been dealt, and it's extremely unfortunate. And frankly, timing and luck is a big part of life. And I personally find it to be a very useful mindset to say, well, like, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's figure out, how I can play this next ball well, and how do I play this hand to the best of my ability, and make your own luck. And maybe that's not the nicest, and probably what people don't want to hear, but I think it's as close to the truth as you can get. That is, you want to control the things you control, and you don't want to get upset about the things that you can't. So pick a direction and move.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you do the right things. You continue learning and stuff like that. And I mean, especially in IT, it's such a big community. There's open source. There's things you can get noticed if you really want to be. You can knock on. You just don't stop knocking and being noticed. You could track attention towards you. That's a lot of my advice that I give a lot of them, especially with the tools now. You can become really, you can pivot and learn something really quickly that a lot of people don't have. Very fast, more than ever, I believe. So, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think I like what you said. Create your own luck, right? No, this was great, man. I do appreciate you, taking the time, spending time with me. I'm looking forward to getting to know you, as well. I want to learn a little bit more about Alex AI. I love the passion. I love what you guys are doing. So I just think good things are going to happen for you guys, man. And I really, man, I'm not a bullshit commercial guy. This is raw. So, as we wrap up, man, let me know if there's anything we can ever do for you. You'll be getting contacted by us. We'll send you everything. Keep on killing it, guys. You got a special thing going on.
Awesome. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the time.
Oh.
And this was, I love having conversations with great people. I mean, that AI can't replace that, right? And so, this was a whole lot of fun. I hope the listeners find this useful.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.